Hello, fellow teachers. This is Fernando Duran. First of all, I want to thank the principal of the Ernest Hemingway School to give me the opportunity to be the DP coordinator. I want to devote this meeting to explain you the lesson planning template that we will be using for this new term. What is most important is not the template by itself, it's what is behind the template, because the template is just an instrument. The most important thing is the pedagogy behind it, the approach that we are trying to follow in our lesson planning as a team in this school. So in the template, you will find very important elements, of course. Right here, you can find, for example, the link or the relation between the core elements of the DP, for example, theory of knowledge and creativity, activity, and service, something related to language and learning, because this is a bilingual school, so students are Spanish native speakers and the classes are taught in English, so it's really important also to consider the language development in our classes. Of course, the relationship with the approach to learning and teaching metacognitions, the IB learner profile, what I would like to focus in a different topic in this meeting, because we all are very familiar with the DP. So I want to focus the meeting in the uh, learning targets approach. As you can see right here, the instrument leads you to think at the very beginning, after the topics you will address, in the learning targets that you will try to develop in your students. The learning targets are those knowledge or skills that you will try to develop in your students in your class. So I try to make this template very clear to help you to understand the process and let you know that there are 5 different types of learning targets. Knowledge learning target, which means it is about the facts or the knowledge or the concept that the students will know after your class. Reasoning targets related to contrast and compare, to classify. Those are those cognitive skills. Skills by itself, what skills your students will develop in your class. The products, this is very different than the task. It is not a task. The learning target product is the process that students follow to get a specific product. And then the disposition, which is really related to the attitude the students have toward learning, toward the content you are addressing. What I want to mention is that the first step that you have to follow in your lesson planning is to think in your learning outcomes or your learning targets, which is what your student will achieve after your class is finished. And then when you have already your targets, you have to take a moment to read them again, because maybe some of them will need clarification. This is that you have to give to provide your students with very clear targets, so everyone knows what are we trying to achieve in the class. And the most important thing is the deconstruction process. This is that maybe you will have very complex targets that need to be deconstructed. This is that need to be divided in different elements that all together will build that main target. But to be achieved, they need to be scaffolded. They need to be divided to address each one independently. Okay, this is a very important target. So you will find, for example, right here, this skill target, learning target, is divided into 3 different uh, elements once it was deconstructed. And in relation with this target, it is the assessment process. It is very important to take in consideration the assessment development cycle, which means that there are 7, at least 6 elements of the assessment development process. This is a blueprint that I am asking you guys to follow, because it is important to have the plan, the route that you are following to deliver the content and to develop the targets in your students. The first step is to understand the type of assessment that you are using. In this case, for example, of course, you have to differentiate between a formative assessment and summative assessment. As you already know, summative assessment is focused on the final products of your students, and then you can get information to grade the performance. And the formative assessment is not necessarily graded, but it is marked and help you to keep the track of your students' performance. Then you have to be clear about who and how will use the information that the assessment provides. For example, teachers or the faculty, the entire faculty, or even the students to track their a learning process. And then it's very important to have a direct relation between the learning targets and your assessment method. Because otherwise you will be assessing something that maybe it is not important. If we already consider what is important, and that is the learning target, so the assessment should be related directly to them. So there are four different assessment methods that I want to share with you: the written response, the selected response, the performance assessment, and then the personal communication. So this is the cycle. Once you have the type of assessment, who and how will use the information, and you have linked the learning target with the assessment method, then you have to think about the sample size. How many evidence you will need to assess your assessment to determine if it was giving you the information you needed. And then the explanation of the task or exercise you will ask your students to do. And finally, the source of bias or distortion, to be aware of some elements that may create confusion in your students and then damage or inhibit the accuracy in your assessment. For example, the language can be an issue in bilingual schools, for example, the vocabulary, etc. So this is about formative assessment, and right here you have also summative assessment. And then you have all the essential understandings, the learning process, the resources that you will use in your lesson planning. So I am running out of time, so I just want to put the emphasis on the importance of the learning targets, the different type of targets there are, the deconstruction process, which is pivotal in our lesson planning, and finally the structured relation that we should be clear about between the assessment and the language targets. So thank you very much for